Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Arthur Robotnik. Well, as you know, I've done a top 15 fighting games list, and I've also covered top 15 crappy fighting games. Well, that was just to test out my skills for a project I've been wanting to do for some time, and I've had this planned out since last year and even had all the footage recorded for a while, but I finally got around to it. Today, we're going to be tackling one of my favorite franchises of all time. We're going to be covering Twisted Metal, and we're going to start with the one that started it all.
Before we begin, we need to go over the series' origins first. David Jaffe was at the time a small programmer who had dreams of directing his own movies, and he had just completed work on Mickey Mania, a pretty decent platformer that happened to be a modest hit. However, David Jaffe was far from the easiest developer to work with, and pissed off almost everyone at the time, and as a result, almost every bridge was burnt. Sony gave him one last chance and told him of a team based out in Salt Lake City, Utah called Evans and Sutherland, a commercial and military computer and simulation firm. Initially, they had some difficulties implementing the military technology to make a game, but they had a burst of inspiration after being stuck in traffic for hours on Interstate 405, where they happened to jokingly fantasize about destroying the traffic with guns and missiles strapped to their cars. With that idea, the concept for Twisted Metal was born, but they weren't out of the woods just yet. Initially, one of the devs modified the initial concept of the game as a pizza delivery simulator, but Jaffe set them straight in the car combat concept won out. From then on, they formed Single Track in spring of 1994 and got to work on the game. Sony gave them a deadline of 12 months to create the game and were given $2 million in advance royalties to create 2 games. These projects were codenamed Red Mercury and Firestorm. Initially, they began as a single game with a simple code, where one could fly around in the assault chopper called the Warhawk in the levels during beta testing, but it became its own game, Warhawk, in the middle of development. Before the final name Twisted Metal was decided, several other titles were tossed around during development, such as Urban Assault, Cars and Rockets, and most famously, High Octane. Due to vehicle combat being a new concept at the time, when Jaffe brought in test audiences to take a look at the game, he got top-level fighting game players and described the product as a fighting game with cars. The test audiences, however, thought the game was trash and mocked the game throughout. Sony of Japan also were very critical of the game's violent nature, so Jaffe was convinced he had a flop on his hands. But the game went gold and was completed on a budget of $850,000. Twisted Metal then came and went on November 5th, 1995, a forgotten relic of the PlayStation. Is what I would be saying if that was the case. Against all odds, the game was a surprise hit, selling at least 1.8 million copies and getting tons of positive reviews from the press at the time, most notably winning Game of the Year from Electronic Gaming Monthly, which was considered one of the most prestigious gaming magazines at the time, if not the most prestigious. The development team was certainly surprised, to say the least. Now, onto the story. In the futuristic year of 2005, the 10th annual Twisted Metal tournament is about to be held on Christmas Eve. The host of the tournament is this enigmatic figure named Calypso, a mysterious man that lives under the streets of Los Angeles. Calypso is a man that survived a deadly car crash and was assumed to be dead, but he certainly never left the crash unscarred, to say the least. He has handpicked 12 drivers to compete in vehicles of their choosing, armed to the teeth. They are expected to fight to the death throughout the streets of LA, and the last one standing gets the prize. The prize is a single wish that Calypso will grant personally, and it's said that there are no limits on prize size or even reality. The competitors are Charlie Kane, the driver of Yellow Jacket, a former race car driver looking for the whereabouts of his missing son, whom he hasn't seen in 20 years. Mr. Ash, the driver of Darkside, a mysterious creature born from the depths of hell. He has entered the tournament hoping to claim what is rightfully his. Carl Roberts, the driver of Outlaw, a good cop in a world gone mad. He has decided the ends justifies the means, and he enters Twisted Metal hoping to put a stop to the unholy tournament once and for all. Bruce Cochrane, the driver of Thumper, a passionate kid from South Central. He enters hoping to finally put a stop to the violence that's been plaguing his neighborhood. Agent Stone, the driver of Crimson Fury, a secret agent for the United Kingdom. He enters the tournament hoping to retrieve a mysterious object containing valuable information before the US government can get their hands on it. Angela Forton, the driver of Pit Viper, is a woman leading a double life. She enters for the modest prize of $1 million. Commander Mason, the driver of Warthog, an official working for the US government. He too is also after the same object containing valuable information and will ensure that Stone does not get his hands on it. Mr. Grimm, a mysterious figure on a motorcycle, enters the tournament hoping to find the one object that has eluded him for years. Scott Campbell, fun fact, he's actually named after the producer of the game and co-creator, is the driver of Spectre. He's a restless ghost. He enters the tournament hoping to come back to life. Dave and Mike, the drivers of Hammerhead, two high school dropouts that stole a monster truck. They don't exactly have a prize in mind, they're just here for the thrill of combat and to see what their heavy metal CDs sound like in a firefight. You don't need too much motivation, I suppose. Captain Spears, the driver of Roadkill, is a man filled with regret. He enters the contest with hopes of undoing his greatest mistake. And last, but certainly not least, is Needles Kane, the driver of the famous ice cream truck, Sweet Tooth. A notorious serial killer clown and mental asylum fugitive. He enters the tournament hoping to find what means to him the most, his best friend. It's a basic setup nonetheless. The tournament will take them throughout Calypso's arena, then to the warehouse district, then to LA's freeway, then to Beverly Hills, then to Suburbia, and finally to LA's tallest skyscrapers. At the end of the tournament, you come face to face with Minion, the winner of the previous tournament. Fun fact, cut FMVs indicate Minion's drivers are a gang known as Apocalypse 9. Remember this will be important. When Minion is defeated, you will get an ending with the character of your choice, and it's just a fucking text scroll. Kind of a bummer considering that this is on the motherfucking PlayStation. You know, the console that is capable of full motion video. And come to think of it, we got live action photos of Calypso there. And we got photos of various drivers. Oh, why the hell am I bothering here? We all know the story at this fucking point. But if you don't, allow me to fill you in. This game originally had live-action FMVs for the endings. The reason that why they were cut tend to vary, but the main reason is, well...
You just don't know. You don't know what it was like for me. And I, and you, and him. You don't know. Cuckoo.
You don't have to do this, man. You don't have to do this. I'm sorry about the girl, man. You don't have to do this.
Well, what'll it be?
We want base! Yeah!
God! Oh! Block! Where are you going? No! What are you doing with Block? Oh! No! 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 Trust me.
Oh, that's strange. It tastes like... Sounds good to me, baby.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fucking lie. These endings are pretty fucking bad. Even for the fucking time. Like, they are bad. Like, they make the Resident Evil live-action opening look like fucking 28 days later, bitch. But these are just too damn funny not to laugh at and to love. The special effects are super level. Like, you can see the fucking hands on the garage there. Come on. Not to mention the acting. It's either underacted to hell and back, or the actors are just hamming it up like no tomorrow. But these endings are a treat nonetheless. If you're wondering about the quality of these endings, these tapes were apparently degraded over time, so when the team had to put them in Twisted Metalhead on Extra Twisted Edition, trust me, we'll look at this later, well, you get the degradation. Now, about the endings themselves, well, for both the text and the live-action endings, most of the time the wishes are granted with no strings attached, barring Outlaw. Poor bastard.
Welcome to your new world, officer. Just as promised, it is free, high-octane competition. And everything else. Enjoy! Calypso! No!
Though in the live-action ending for Spectre, Calypso just shoots him after bringing him back to life. What a dick!
And I take it away. Try again next year, driver.
Calypso, no, please don't.
No! Ah!
The presentation is fairly alright for 1995, but fairly unremarkable. The graphics are kind of primitive, but this is an early PlayStation game, so that can only be helped so much. But I've seen people at the time say that this game wasn't graphically anything to write home about either. But I have a hard time kind of seeing it. Yeah, it is definitely simple and flat, and it's definitely not Daytona USA tier graphics, but that was a Model 2 arcade game, people. The HUD, though, does look really basic, but again, there's only so much that will be done with the first game, and the HUD clearly functions. The POV view, though, is actually really cool, where it shows some extra personality for the car, but I absolutely would not recommend playing this mode, as Twisted Metal's gameplay can get pretty hectic, and this can give you potential severe motion sickness. As for the music, it's actually pretty good. It's vanilla rock and roll, but it complements the action very well, with Twisted Theme, Cybert Slide, and Asphalt Assault being particular favorites. I must say that the game's performance, though, can vary. The game runs at 30 frames per second, which isn't too unusual for a PS1 game, but this game will chug a lot when the action happens, especially when you fight Minion. Again, this is an early PS1 game, so there's only so much that can be done, and this was clearly Singletrack's first game, so performance hiccups may happen. The gameplay of Twisted Metal is pretty simple. You are dropped into a battleground, and your objective is to kill all of your opponents before they kill you. To do so, you got several weapons at your disposal. Fire missiles are your basic weapon. They have slight homing capabilities and average power. Homing missiles are the most accurate weapon, but their damage isn't too great. Power missiles deal great damage, but they can't home in at all, so you have to line up your shot. Freeze missiles are missiles that don't deal direct damage, but they freeze an opponent in place to help you line up a shot. But ultimately, they don't home in either, so they're kind of useless. Rear missiles are basically fire missiles, but they fire backwards if you want to take out someone chasing you. Mines are bombs that you plant as a trap for enemies to run over. Tire spikes don't deal direct damage, but they stop someone in their tracks. Oil slicks can cause someone to drift around like crazy. Catapults basically launch you or someone in the air. Every vehicle also comes with special weapons and a machine gun. The machine guns are your emergency weapon. They will never run out, but if you fire it for too long, they will overheat. The special weapon is a vehicle's signature attack that recharges over time, and they vary in power, accuracy, and utility. For example, Hammerhead has the ability to manually run over the opponent to activate his special weapon, while Outlaw Special is an omnidirectional taser that just requires him to be near an opponent to hit. Most specials, though, are just basic projectiles varying in power, with Mr. Grimm's objectively being the strongest, since it cleans out health with a single hit. The balance feels kinda weird, to be honest, as some vehicles are just flat out better than others, even in the most blatant terms. Hammerhead's a good example of a vehicle that just flat out sucks, as the only good stat it has is its armor, but its special weapon is way too damn situational to make good use out of it, as you have to crush the opponent, which can be risky during a firefight. And his speed is ass. Darkseid also has that to a much lesser extent, though his ram damage more than makes up for it, being capable of just killing weaker armored characters just by merely tapping them. And most of the special weapons aren't very accurate outside of Outlaws, Warthogs, or especially Spectres, who I'd argue is the best character in the game, as this special is the Ghost Missile. A missile that not only homes in on the opponent, but also goes through fucking walls, recharges pretty fast, and it deals pretty good damage. Add his top speed and good handling, and his weak armor feels more like a non-issue. The controls may take a bit to get used to, as they are quite non-traditional, but I do feel like they work very well for the game, and if you don't like your default controls, you can change them to something more comfortable for you in the options, thankfully. The physics, however, feel very slippery, but they work for what it's worth. The level design is fairly rudimentary, but it's passable for the time, and the level size for its day is pretty impressive. The difficulty for the most part has a reasonable curve, as the first arena only has you fight one dude to get you accustomed to the game. From then on, the challenge feels mostly reasonable, but then there's a nasty difficulty spike and Assault on Cyberbia. Cyberbia is not only a big level, but you also deal with 8 opponents, all of which may gang up on you out of nowhere. Oh, come the fuck on! You have 3 lives during the tournament, and when you lose all of them, it's game over. You continue where you left off by putting in a password, so thankfully you don't lose all your progress, but why not just have a simple continue option in that case? Not to also mention during Cyberbia, I also feel like I'm in a mix of where the hell is that opponent and oh god, they're ganging up on me due to how this level is freaking huge. And survivability is very weird in Twisted Metal, as you will inevitably take pot shots and they will build up, and all it takes to ruin your day is one unlucky hit of a random homing missile. Damn it! Luckily, there are healing stations planted throughout the level after the first stage to help you even the odds, and they do a massively good job of giving you a heal. These, however, take a long-ass time to recharge, so use them when you absolutely need to, or you might just find yourself stalling for time so you can get back into the fight. By comparison, I found the final level, Rooftop Combat, to be way easier, despite the fact that as you drive up the rooftop, you die. Mainly you have to deal with 3 bozos at first, but the arena is a lot smaller, so it's easier to find the opponents. Like I said, when you beat everyone here, you then have a 1-to-1 fight with last year's winner, Minion, who drives a fucking tank. As a boss, Minion has access to almost every special weapon in the game, and he can be scary to fight head-on. I usually find myself keeping my distance from him and pelting him with homing missiles, and I only get close to him if I have a freeze missile. And that's usually to light up a shot with a power missile. He also has really good armor, so it'll take forever to go down. He also has really good speed, so make sure if you want to escape from him, just keep running or he will crush you. Despite this fight seems somewhat fair, if for the fact that it at least has an illusion of fairness. Oh, don't worry, we'll get to him in a bit. When you've gotten your fair share of single-player action, you can hop into the multiplayer Deathmatch mode, which for some is the major highlight of the franchise. In fact, a big reason for Twisted Metal's success is that the multiplayer is just really fun. For an idea, GoldenEye's famous split screen was only just 2 years away, so this was a big deal for the time. So let's see how it holds up today. It's worth pointing out that the multiplayer here has to reduce the size of any level outside the arena to not overload the PS1 hardware, which is kind of a bummer, but this is an early PS1 game that already struggles to maintain a consistent 30, so that's understandable. As a whole, it's still fairly fun to play, but I don't really see any reason to pick this one up for multiplayer over the later entries, barring one certain entry that I'll get into in a bit. Trust me, I have a lot to say about that one. In all fairness, this is the first game in the series, so it's only inevitable that the sequels would improve and build upon the formula, so I have to be fair to this as possible. So, I'll treat it with kid gloves. It also doesn't hurt that this game isn't that expensive on the aftermarket either, so if you want to, it's not a bad game to add to your collection. But when I say, should you start here? No, not at all. Like I said, there's some early installment weirdness here, and there are much better games in the series that are better games to start with, but it's certainly a neat curiosity. That said, the score I give Twisted Metal 1995 is a 7 out of 10.
So, the game was a hit, and you know what that means? Sequels were inevitable. I have a lot to say about this game, as this is without a doubt one of my favorite games of all time for the original PlayStation. Like, this game is awesome. Let's dive right into this.
I couldn't find too much development history on this game, but from what I could dig up, the game started development shortly after the first game came out, and initially, some ideas they had tossed around were making the cars hover cars and using a mission-based structure. But that was scrapped during pre-production, and the traditional car combat still remains fully intact. Due to the success of the original, Single Track was granted 16 months of development, and the game was released on October 31st, 1996, and was a commercial and critical success, selling 1.74 million copies and receiving rave reviews, with most critics hailing it as an improvement over the first game. Now let's hop into the premise. Exactly 1 year after the events of the first game, Los Angeles has been reduced to mere rubble. Calypso has a crisis of where he should hold the next tournament, since there's nothing left to destroy. However, upon looking at a globe, he has an epiphany. Why not make the entire world his battleground? Handpicking 14 of the world's best drivers, Twisted Metal is about to commence for the 11th annual tournament. The drivers this go-around are Marcus Kane, the new driver of Roadkill. He's a homeless man that's been living in his car for the better part of a decade. He's convinced the world that he's living in is nothing more than a nightmare, and he enters the tournament hoping to wake up from the horrific world. Amanda Watts, the driver of the newcomer Twister, is a Formula 1 race car driver obsessed with going fast. She's hoping Calypso can let her travel speeds faster than light to have the ultimate rush. Axel, a man that's a prisoner of his own vehicle. He enters the tournament hoping to earn the strength to confront the man that imprisoned him in this hellish contraption. Simon Whittle, the driver of Mr. Slam, is a disgruntled architect fired from his job after he proposed building a tower that would reach the gates of heaven. He enters the tournament hoping to achieve his dream of building Whittlebone Tower. Mortimer Scharf, the driver of Shadow, a mysterious man that helps souls avenge their untimely deaths. He has a cargo of souls of various men and women that were unfortunately killed throughout the tournaments, all with a desire to make Calypso pay. Mike and Stu, the new drivers at Hammerhead, are a new pair of two stupid teenagers with another stolen monster truck. Unlike the past drivers, these guys actually have a wish in mind. The ability to fly. So they can peer down women's shirts. Remember folks, this is the 1990s, and let's be very frank here, I've seen teenagers back in my high school that were even more immature and sexist, so this really isn't too surprising. Jamie Roberts, the driver of Outlaw 2, is the brother of Carl Roberts from the last tournament. Carl is actually the canon winner of the prior Twisted Metal tournament and wished for a world free of Twisted Metal. He sure as hell got it. It was free of Twisted Metal, alright. And everything else. Jamie enters the tournament searching for her brother, hoping to rescue him. Mr. Grimm returns from the depths of hell with his badass chopper, this time hoping to bring about Armageddon to have the ultimate all-you-can-eat buffet of human souls. Captain Rogers, the new driver of Warthog, is a veteran that's 105 years old. Wanting a second chance at life, he enters the tournament hoping to have the body of a 20-year-old. Krista Sparks, the driver of Grasshopper, is a teenager that faked her age to compete in the tournament. She's searching for her father, who is assumed to be dead for 11 years. Bruce Cochran returns with Thumper. He's now tired of fighting for South Central and decides to fight for himself for a change, wanting to rule the Earth. Ken Masters, no, not that one, is the new driver of Spectre. He's a struggling actor that's hoping for his big break. When he wins the tournament, he wants the entire world to know his face. And unlike the first game, we actually got 2 secret characters that can be unlocked with simple codes. As for the 2 characters, we got Needles Kane. He's back once more as the crazed clown driving Sweet Tooth. Tired of the world calling him crazy, he's hoping Calypso can help him fulfill his greatest fantasy to escape his miserable existence. Minion returns as a mid-boss, but now he's playable for the first time, even getting a special driver. Minion's the demon that Calypso stole the powers from after Minion lost a race to him in Hell. Minion enters the tournament to get revenge against Calypso. The tournament starts the competitors out in the ruins of Los Angeles, then to an abandoned missile silo in Moscow, then to the streets of Paris, then to a series of ruins somewhere in Colombia, then to the rooftops of New York, then to a collapsing glacier near Antarctica. Oh dear, this level feels very uncomfortable nowadays. Then to the fields of Holland, and then finally through the streets of Hong Kong. When all the regular competitors in Hong Kong are destroyed, a mysterious figure known as Darktooth, heavily implied to be driven by Charlie Kane from the first game, emerges and challenges the survivor to a battle, accusing them of killing his son, Needles. When Darktooth is defeated, your selected driver meets Calypso at New York to claim their prize. These endings are thankfully FMVs for the first time. Unlike the live-action cutscenes, these use a comic book style to them and feature limited animation. It's actually really cool and has an awesome style to it that, keeps it from being too dated. The voice acting for the time is also really damn good, especially for 1996. Special props goes to Mel McMurrin, the voice actor for Calypso, who does an absolutely fantastic job of bringing the character to life.
What can I do for you, gentlemen?
We won the game, right? So you gotta give us our prize. We want...
No, dude.
Say...
Demand.
Okay. We demand that you give us the ability to fly.
Certainly.
That's so cool.
Congratulations. I have granted your wish. Have a great time in the friendly sky.
Giving them the right amount of ham and showing the natural charisma of Calypso, while also showing a sinister side when absolutely necessary. Speaking of Calypso, Calypso's familiar personality is defined here, and let's just say the results of some of these wishes aren't pretty. To give a good idea, let's look at Spectre's ending.
Ken Masters stepped out of his car and stood before me. He had waited his whole life for this meeting, a chance to make his ultimate dream come true.
I'm an actor, and I'm really good, and I've been struggling, searching for my big break for over 6 weeks. Please, Calypso, you gotta make me famous. Make it so the entire world knows my face.
Your wish is granted.
Hey, don't touch the face.
Nice. Oh, I can see all of them
Hold on
now. When Ken first woke up, he thought he'd been dreaming. But then he looked around and realized he was thousands of feet above New York City, and his face felt calm. The driver of Spectre had gotten his wish. Now the entire world knew Ken's face. And to tell you the truth, I rather like seeing his face every day. It's a nice face. I do not regret what I did. I am Calypso, and I thank you for playing Twisted Metal.
Yeah, Calypso's a bit of a dick. But that's what makes him so entertaining. Honestly, he steals the show very well, to the point that you could argue he's the most entertaining character in the franchise. That's not to say that Calypso wins every time. Oh no, some characters successfully turn the tables on Calypso. Remember his little buddy Minion? Well, let's see what happens when his luck finally runs out.
Calypso, you are coming with me.
Minion, it's so good to see you again. Surely we can work out a deal?
You stole my powers, Calypso, 11 years ago, stripping me of my birthright. Now it is time to pay the price.
No, don't do that. Please, Minion. It's scary
Let's
down there.
go, little Calypso,
I
man.
want to raise my gun.
Time to rot in hell with your little sister.
That ending is so fucking awesome. You can tell the second Minion appeared, Calypso straight up shat his pants and knows he's screwed. Now on to the presentation. Twisted Metal 2's presentation is largely a massive step up in the areas. The cars graphically don't look too different from the first game, but the color for one is a lot more lively. Areas don't feel as washed out, and every level has a distinct color scheme to them to make them pop out even more. We also got a cool loading transition between stages of a globe as we go to our next destination, kinda like fighting games with Street Fighter 2. The menus look sleek as ever, and the comic book art style, as I said, looks awesome. It lets the world pop out. The music is also really damn good. Particular songs include LA Quake Zone Rumble, Moscow Suicide Slide, Paris Monumental Disaster, and the main themes are ones that stick out very well. The sound design is also still fantastic as ever, and gives you a good idea when a vehicle is nearby so you can dodge attacks and get out of the way. The frame rate is also notably a lot more stable. It'll dip, but only when a lot of shit is happening at once. Now onto the gameplay. I've already said that the critics consider Twisted Metal 2 to be a massive improvement in every way, and to say that that is an objective fact would be correct. Everything in this game is so massively improved from the first. For one, they ditched the freeze, rear, mines, tire spikes, oil, and catapults, alongside the rear flames, which I completely forgot to mention, but that's because the rear flames sucked in TM1. In favor of using an energy meter, where you can input fighting game style motions for special abilities, such as the freeze missile, the mines, a free napalm, a temporary force field, a cloak that takes you off the radar so the AI won't seek you, a rear fire for whatever weapon you have currently selected, a jump to catch some air, and if you have a full meter, you can just use Minion's special. This helps out a lot, as the freeze missiles here home in now, making the freeze much more useful. The force field helps out a lot for approaching enemies, so you can take pot shots easier, and it makes lower armor vehicles like Mr. Grimm a lot safer to use. We also got some new weapons to play with, such as the ricochet bombs, which have shit accuracy, but they can ricochet off walls and have one hell of a knockback, which makes these babies very dangerous on the rooftops. We got the lightning, which is kind of like Outlaw's taser, except it can only use on certain areas, which makes it very underutilized, as only 3 levels, I believe, use this. But the idea would be fleshed out much better in sequels onward. The napalm here makes its debut as a weapon that arcs with a slight homing capabilities, and whatever it hits, it not only deals decent damage, but also catches the opponent on fire. Last but not least, we got remote bombs, which can be planted, then detonated later. They deal even stronger damage than power missiles, but they can also harm you severely if you're not careful, so make sure you're out of range before you use them. The machine guns also now don't overheat, but to compensate, they are much weaker than the first game. This game also marks the debut of having some areas that can be destroyed to reveal secrets. Sometimes it's really mundane, like burning the Mona Lisa in the Louvre for a code for a secret deathmatch level, or something massive, such as blowing up the Eiffel Tower to access the rest of Paris. This moment is without a doubt fucking awesome. Heh yeah, suck my dick, Paris! There's other minor things you can do as well that you can blow up for shits and giggles, such as blowing up the Hollywood sign. Yeah, take that! That's for Dragon Ball Evolution, you uncreative bastards! The control feels massively improved, as the physics are still a little floaty, but it feels a lot tighter and nowhere near as slippery as the first game. The difficulty, however, honestly feels all over the place. LA Quake Zone Rumble feels basic enough, but the difficulty spikes at the second level in Moscow pretty fast. Mainly as not only weapons take forever to respawn here, for this level you have to fight 5 opponents and the level is very small. Not to mention, as the AI in this game really loves to gang up on you as much as possible with freeze missile spam, especially with Mr. Slam feels grabby.
Don't touch me!
Things calm down around Paris and Amazonia, thankfully, though Minion can be a little tricky when he decides to play in Amazonia, but he's fucking Minion. Fucker's broken as hell. New York's main difficulty is avoiding falling off, but it's not too bad from my experience personally. Then the difficulty truly peaks in this game with Antarctica, the drop zone, which I would argue is the worst Twisted Metal level of all time. The main gimmick of this level is that you're on a collapsing glacier that collapses over time. Not only does this reduce the size of the battlefield, but most of the really good weapons are on pieces that collapse immediately. Not only that, but most of the areas with health pickups also are on areas that are hard to reach. This level also sucks at multiplayer, as the pieces don't respawn when you're actually fighting your buddies, so it's also a really stupid level to pick in multiplayer. I just wanted to get that out there because this level sucks. It says a lot that the next level, Holland, which is just a bare field where you fight 9 enemies with nowhere to hide, is way easier to get through. The final battleground, Hong Kong Crunch, is kinda tough, but mostly reasonable difficulty-wise. Then Darktooth decides to ruin your day. This guy is fucking scary. Darktooth is this massive badass ice cream truck that has armor that would make minions jealous, an AI that's crazy intelligent as he will not only just merely blindly chase you, but he will also set up ambushes as well. He cannot be bargained with, he cannot be reasoned with, he does not feel pity, remorse, or fear, and he will absolutely not stop ever until you are dead. And if you just try to hide out in the subways from him, he'll flood them with ricochet bombs. Here's a good tip. Do not approach him unless you have either freeze his ass or you have a shield ready, as he will tear you to shreds with his insane special power of his head slam and machine gun napalm cones. The best way to make sure he's dead is to be packing some remote bombs, as his armor will laugh at your attacks otherwise. At least Minion in Twisted Metal 1 gave you a fighting chance. This guy is fucking ridiculous. When you destroy the truck, then you have a second phase of the head itself, which is thankfully much easier, as the head has like no armor. And when you beat the head, you get your audience with Calypso. If tournament mode isn't your fancy, you can always pick challenge mode, where you pick a map, then you pick random cards to fight against. Not a bad idea, really. And once single player has given you your fill, you got the multiplayer to hop into. This time, the maps are preserved intact, with the exception of New York, which had to block off one of the building sections. You can also input some codes to fight on secret levels, 2 of which are from the original Twisted Metal, where we have Rooftop Combat and Suburbia, both fully intact from the original game, which is pretty cool. The other secret level is Suicide Swamp from Jet Moto, another game by Singletrack that's a pretty decent racer, though it is fucking hard as balls. This level, though, sucks in Deathmatch. If Deathmatch isn't your fancy, you can always do the tournament with a friend in co-op, which is really cool as an idea. Though if you're to attempt this, make sure you and your buddy are equally skilled, as you both share lives, and when they run out, it's a game over. You also don't get endings, which is kind of a bummer, but whatever. So yeah, this game fucking rocks. Twisted Metal 2 World Tour gets an 8 out of 10.
So, Twisted Metal 2 is pretty awesome. Man, you know, if it's gonna keep getting this awesome, I can't wait to see what the third game would look like.
Your wish is granted.
Who are you?
You can call me Dr. Anti-Worm Robotnik. I am your evil counterpart.
Not this cliche shit again. What do you want?
Oh, I wanted to give you this. It's my favorite entry in the franchise and my favorite game of all time.
Huh, I'll consider it a... Not this game! Not this game!
Face it, your favorite franchise shall be irreparably ruined by this. This is why it's my favorite game of all time. I'll watch you squirm.
Damn you! Damn you!
Now, while you're playing this, I'll continue writing the script of the TV show. Ha 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 ha!
No!
Sadly, this was not to last. In 1997, shortly after Jet Moto 2 was released, Singletrack had a contractual dispute with Sony, as they felt that they were not receiving enough royalties for their games. For a reminder, remember that they were only paid about $2 million in advance royalties during Twisted Metal 1's development. Well, Warhawk and Twisted Metal 1 made about $86 million in revenue for Sony, with just merely 500,000 sales combined of both of those games. And that's a paltry sum by comparison. As a result, GT Interactive offered to buy up Singletrack, and they accepted it, taking the Twisted Metal 2 engine with them, and they ended up making the spiritual successor Road Trip Vacation 2012. Pretty fun game, check it out when you get the chance. Sony, needing a new Twisted Metal fast, assigned their in-house developers 989 Studios to make Twisted Metal 3, giving them a deadline of 7 months for a 1998 holiday release. Now, Regardless of how I will feel about this game, it's worth pointing out that 989 is not a bad studio by any means. Hell, they got a lot of good games under their belt even. They publish Siphon Filter, and they have a decent record with their sports games that they happen to develop in-house. If anything, it's just Twisted Metal is not their forte. David Jaffe was originally supposed to supervise the game, but he was too busy working on a game called Dead Guns, which was eventually cancelled, so he only has a special thanks in the final credits. As far as I know, development probably went smooth with Twisted Metal 3, but the game does show some obvious signs of being rushed, which we'll get into that in a bit. And the game was released on October 31st, 1998 in North America only. Twisted Metal 3 was a commercial success, selling about 1.14 million copies, but received mixed to negative reviews from many critics, with even the few positive reviews even feeling that this game was inferior to Twisted Metal 2. And oh, we'll get into that in a bit. Let's move on to the premise. It's been 2 years since Twisted Metal 2 in the year 2008. Calypso holds tournament, 14 drivers show up, haha, fire missile, grrr, wish granted. Let's go look at this year's drivers, as oh boy, do a good amount of them suck! First off, we have Buster Cobb, the driver of Augur. He's a very pissed off construction worker. He enters the tournament seeking revenge against the Twisted Metal contestants for destroying his life's works. I think. Axel returns this time, once again as a prisoner of his own vehicle. After he tore himself from the machine, he was permanently disfigured. So he somehow hops back into his machine with his torn-ass arms and competes once more. What? Club Kid is the ultimate raver. He enters a tournament hoping to rock and roll all night long and party every day. Dude, can't you just go do that? Damien Cole is the driver of Firestarter, is the trouble starter punking instigator. He's a fear-addicted and danger illustrated. He enters, I think, just to cause some mayhem and barbecue or something. I don't fucking know. I can't make heads or tails of this fucking guy. The Prodigy reference is pretty cool, though. Amber, the driver of Flower Power, is an environmentalist that enters the tournament hoping to cover the world in flowers. Mr. Grimm is back with his badass chopper, hoping to feast on the ultimate soul out there. Granny Dredd, the extremely stupid and infantile new driver of Hammerhead, is a cranky old woman. She enters the tournament hoping to run the Twisted Metal competitors from her lawn so she can watch her daytime television. Undisturbed. No, I did not make this shit up. It's just as juvenile and unfunny as it sounds. Who writes this shit? Minion returns as a secret character and mid-boss. He's after Calypso again, I guess, though this time he dresses like a male stripper. Jamie and Carl Roberts both this time pilot Outlaw. Jamie had anticipated that Calypso would screw her over and modified her car so she could successfully rescue her brother should Calypso screw her over. This time, they both entered the tournament hoping to eradicate the Twisted Metal tournament by wishing for a clean, safe world free of crime. Marcus Kane returns as Roadkill's driver, but this time he's just a generally crazy homeless man. He enters for reasons. I don't fucking care anymore. Lance Wilder, the new driver Spectre, enters the tournament just hoping to be famous. Just like the guy from the last! They seriously couldn't think of anything else! Needles Kane is back as Sweet Tooth's driver, and he enters hoping to spread some more mayhem as he's got the Sweet Tooth for carnage. And yeah, and totally not candy and ice cream. Bruce Cochran is once again Thumper's driver. He hopes to kick it with his homies, I guess. Last but not least, we got Captain Rogers again as Warthog. He ended up getting the body of a 20-year-old for sure, alright, but not the head to match. He enters to fix that. And that actually makes sense. Good on him. I want you to remember a few of these descriptions, as I'll come back to them in a bit. Anyways, the tournament takes him through the Hollywood after it was leveled by the Great Quake of 2007, then to the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., to the top secret depths of Area 51 in Hangar 18. Would have been cool to have Megadeth here, but I digress. To right outside Santa's workshop in the North Pole, to the streets of London, then to the rooftops of Tokyo, then to Egypt, and finally Calypso's blimp. When everyone was wiped out in Calypso's blimp, his bodyguard Primeval challenges you to a duel, and when he's defeated, you win the tournament and you get to claim your prize. And oh boy, do they get fucking lazy with these endings. For starters, none of these endings clock in over 30 seconds at all, or feature your driver really speak. They're also animated in really bad CGI. I know this came out on the PS1, but for an idea how bad this CGI looks, I want you to remember that Tekken 3 came out the same year and looks a bajillion times better. Also, about half the endings contradict the character bios in both the manual and the driver info. Let's go back to Augur. Remember how his bio states that he's out for revenge, correct? Well, here's his ending.
So, Augur, Your wish is for people to see your inner child. Your wish is granted. Now, you can show us your sensitive side. I am Calypso, and I thank you for playing Twisted Metal.
Wait a fucking minute. Where the hell did it even hint that he wanted the world to see his inner child? Or Minion. He wants to hunt down Calypso. Hell, we saw his ending in 2. It's awesome. So let's see how bad they'll fuck it up with sucktacular CGI.
Minion, you want to spend the rest of eternity in hell? Your wish is granted. Welcome to Hell, Michigan. Population 352. Wait, 353?
Wow, that was disappointingly lame. First off, the joke really isn't that clever. And again, Minion is a fucking demon. Why would he need to wish to spend eternity in hell? You live there, you dense motherfucker. We haven't even seen the worst ending of the lot. Let's show you fuckers Sweet Tooth's ending. Now I'm gonna warn you, this ending is bad. Like, it is bad. Like, you're witnessing, like, 10-year-old me wasting his time getting these endings and being so disappointed that this was the last ending he got bad. Without further ado, here's Sweet Tooth's ending.
So, Sweet Tooth, your wish is to eat all the candy and ice cream you want? Your wish is granted. You should have brushed between snacks. I am Calypso, and I thank you for playing Twisted Metal.
I swear the upcoming TV show better not fucking do this, otherwise this series is dead to me. I mean, look how they massacred my boy. Needles Kane is supposed to be an insane serial killer, and here, he's just eating all the candy and ice cream in the world. Like, this shit isn't funny at all. This is stupid. Like, this is fucking, like, this is shit that would be, like, thrown out in the fucking, like, This is, like, one of the least funny shit I've ever seen. Like, this would be something that would be laughed out of shit like Brickleberry. And I know someone is gonna bring up Dr. Earthworm Robotnik. In the first game, he wished for a fucking paper bag. How is wishing for all the candy in the world any different? Allow me to explain. That was the first game, and as a result, Needles' characterization wasn't exactly fully set in stone. But he was still shown to be a crazed serial killer. Not only that, but if you go by the bio in the first game, he's going after his best friend, which is revealed to be the paper bag. In his crazed mind, the bag is his friend. It's Crazy Harold the Wacky Lunch Sack. Not only that, but the ending in both the text scroll and the live action ending was funny. Even Calypso was baffled by this request and felt insulted that Sweet Tooth would ask for something that was practically worthless. He could have asked for anything he wanted. He could have asked for political power, wealth, even potentially godhood. And all he asked for was the mundaneness of a paper bag. Whereas in 3, not only does Needles just ask for the chance to eat all the candy he wants, Calypso just grants it nilly-willy without question, and even sends him to the dentist for his troubles. Like, he doesn't get screwed over. Like, it's not clever, it's not be careful what you wish for. He got all the candy in the world, and he got his teeth clean. It's stupid. It's fucking stupid. I swear, this ending is worse than the one in Tekken 5 where Paul fights fucking aliens. And that ending sucks. Though at least Tekken 5 is a good game. Hell, it's probably one of the best Tekken games next to Tekken 7. So, at least Paul fighting aliens belongs to a good game. Not to also mention that most of these wishes suck. Did they just think these shitty endings through?
what were these fucking riders on? Bath salts? This game just totally reeks of, how do you do, fellow kids? Yo, we're totally hip with y'all, give me some money. And just completing the game isn't worth it, since these endings are very creatively sterile, lazy done hack jobs with piss poor CGI. I even got to the main game and I've already lost my patience with this fucking game. Anyways, let's move on to the presentation. Let's continue on with the cutscenes again one last time. Aside from the endings, the game opens up with a CGI cutscene set to Meet the Creeper by Rob Zombie. Sadly, there will be no Rob Zombie music playing in this review, as while it slaps hard, I am not risking a copyright takedown from his lawyers, so you'll just have to make do with what's in the background. This opening would be fairly passable if it weren't for the drivers constantly swerving around like they were drunkards. Not to also mention that, again, the CGI is really poor for the time. Like, for fuck's sake, Tekken 2's cutscenes look better than this. As far as the in-game graphics go, they're a mixed bag. The wheels individually move, and the vehicle's definitely got a massive step up in the graphical quality, which is nice to see, though Sweet Tooth's head looks fucking weird. Yeah, it's nice to have a polygon this time, but it just looks really off. Maybe that's the point, but I don't know. I feel like it still looks kinda cheap. But whatever, it's the PlayStation. What are you gonna do? The frame rate for the most part is stable, but it will dip a little bit more frequently than it should. Though it only happens with a lot of particles either on screen or the blimp, so the fact that this game mostly runs stable is neat to see at least. The sound design is notably worse, though. According to the Apocalypso series, the sound glitches may be due to the fact that I'm playing this on the PS3, where most of the attacks sound like the game is just farting. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. The music is a mixed batch of licensed music and original music, and it's pretty alright. Rob Zombie supplied Super Beast and Meet the Creeper, which fit Twisted Metal very well. Pitch Shifter kicked in a few songs as well, but I would say that while the music isn't actually bad, it's more it doesn't fit Twisted Metal. The in-house music isn't too bad either. We get a weird case of the North Pole where it's a mashup of Jingle Bells and, of all things, More Human Than Human by White Zombie, and it's actually pretty cool. Regardless of my thoughts on the game, I will say the music in this game is actually really good. My only complaint is that the music is tied to the levels, which is fine for the original tracks, but for the licensed tracks, it can kind of get grating here and Meet the Creeper over and over when you're on the blimp, but it's a minor complaint. At least the voice acting from Mel McMurrin is still fantastic with his Calypso, but the other characters' voices are,
Ready? Aim? Fire! This is gonna be one big-ass barbecue with no one left to kiss the cook.
Yeah, these aren't good. Now onto the gameplay, and man, this one's rough. Since Single Track owned the Twisted Metal 2 engine, 989 Studios had to code a new engine from scratch called the True Physics engine, which I believe may have been used in Rallycross 2, but I'm not exactly sure. As a result, this game feels a lot slower and has more realistic physics. I know that some people would definitely argue that Twisted Metal 1 and 2 may go a little too fast and may feel too slippery, but I'm going to be frank and say that this game feels like an overcorrection to that. The speed feels way too slow for my taste, and the control feels really stiff. It also doesn't help that you're going to be flipping around a lot, and when your car tumbles over, you gotta wait 2 seconds for it to implode in on itself and get back on its wheels or something. If anything, this fucking engine shows why Twisted Metal shouldn't have mostly realistic physics. It slows the battles down. The weapons also feel massively nerfed, so battles also feel like they drag on forever. Not to also mention that I feel like homing missiles also miss a lot more than they should, which, you know, considering that these are supposed to be the most accurate weapon, is a problem. Some of the new weapons are also really underwhelming. The speed missile is weaker than a homing missile, but you can fire them in bulk, but it feels redundant to have this weapon considering the machine gun exists and doesn't show up way better by being an emergency weapon. The mortars are okay, but all they are is just a napalm with extra range and better homing capability, making the napalm useless unless you're in close range. The rain missile is actually kind of cool, but tricky to use, where you have to detonate it and it rains napalm on your foes. Certain levels also have environmental weapons that are super broken as fuck, such as Hangar 18's spaceship. Get this fucking item and whatever enemy's on the ground is fucking dead! The only downside is that the respawn time takes fucking forever. But they can really help clean house in single player, especially thanks to a really stupid mechanic they added. This game reduces the enemies you fight at once. If anything, you never fight more than 5 at once, I believe. To compensate, however, starting from the North Pole, when you kill a certain amount of enemies, they spawn in from 1 to 3 enemies depending on the level, which just drags the level out much longer than it needs to.
Not to also mention the AI is now programmed to go after health pickups when they're low on health, which can also drag out the fight and screw you out of much needed health, especially as this game for some asinine reason took out the shield command. Might I ask, why take that out? The shield wasn't even that broken in 2, as it only lasted 4 seconds and took a good chunk out of your energy meter, so it was very balanced. It also made approaches much safer. Granted, the game's a lot easier than 2, but I feel having the shield could have prevented a few obnoxious deaths I encountered in London, where the difficulty just obnoxiously spikes for no real reason. Outside of that, this game's difficulty is mostly reduced, and at its worst, it's more tedious than hard. However, we got 3 bosses here, as Darkseid also hops into play around Washington DC, but he's such a pushover. He feels like a last-minute addition, considering he's not even playable for some reason. Though you could say it was cool that they repurposed an idea that was originally in 2, as Darkseid was supposed to be the boss at LA in Twisted Metal 2, but he was cut early in development. London's only really obnoxious as it's the one level where I swear the AI will gang up on you constantly, and you also have to fight Minion here, who's no pushover. However, for the final boss on Calypso's blimp, Primeval isn't that tough of a final fight. Yeah, he's got max stats, and his special is pretty strong, but if you play your cards right, he's a chump. He felt pretty fair to fight, honestly. You can also play the campaign with an AI partner, but I would not recommend it as the AI shares your lives, but they will also take all your health pickups. Once again, when single player no longer satisfies you, though I highly doubt this game satisfied you to begin with, the multiplayer is still here with the same bells and whistles, though now you can take up to 4 players. At the time, this was a big deal, and definitely not a bad addition to the franchise. In concept. In reality, the 4-player on here runs like absolute dog shit. I swear it runs at 50 frames per second. The concept is definitely good, but just could not be done well with this game with the technology that was available. And yeah, CTR did it, but CTR was designed with 4 players in mind, and isn't a fucking car combat game. You also got some Deathmatch exclusive levels, 2 of which are just the arenas for the menu, but one variant has obstacles, the other's just Club Kid's house, which has very little that's interesting. In fact, a lot of the levels of this game have nothing really going on. Washington DC, for one egregious example, is just a flat square. The only thing that shows me we're at DC is the Capitol building. Or what about Egypt? All that we got here is just a generic desert with a pyramid and a tomb. Or Tokyo, which is just 3 generic rooftops, which could be anywhere. This looks nothing like Tokyo. Or what about the North Pole, which is just a generic snow level? The only thing that tells me we're at the North Pole is Santa's workshop is there and can be destroyed. But it's still not as exciting as knocking down the fucking Eiffel Tower. The only good levels I can think of in this game are Hollywood, London, and the Blimp, but even then they pale in comparison to Twisted 2's levels. Hell, Twisted 1 had better design levels that at least some of them had good stuff going on for them. But at the end of the day, this game just sucks. It is poo-poo. It is fermented, feculent fucking garbage rushed out the door by Sony for a quick holiday buck, and it shows the piss-poor level design, the physics that felt arbitrarily slapped on, and the absolutely god-awful CGI endings that feel like a bad episode of Beast Wars. Twisted Metal 3 gets 3 out of 10.
While I can understand some people liking this game, I personally just cannot recommend this considering the competition at the time was so much better. Like, you had Vigilante 8, and you also have Road Trip Vacation 2012 you can also be playing, which is a much better game in every way. So honestly, this is just a massive disappointment for the time, especially when you really consider how massive, like, Twisted Metal 2 improved on everything, and this game just takes several steps back, so honestly, I really can't recommend this game. Like, this is such a massive disappointment.
I have broken you. You shall perish now.
Okay, seriously, what's your end goal here?
I just want you to suffer. You know, suffer. Squirm! Squirm, damn you! Squirm!
Okay, why don't you want to take over the world or something?
I don't get the question. I am here to destroy you!
Get the fuck out of my house!
I promise that you haven't seen the last of me. Fuckhead, I'll be back. Just you wait.
Yeah, and maybe we'll get a new Twisted Metal game. Hopefully.
You will pay with your insolence. I'll make you play Shadow the Hedge.
I already LP'd that game. You can't break me.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
Fuck you! You shall regret crossing Dr. Untitled Robotnik. I'll make you pay, damn you. You will pay. I'll be back. I'll be back when you least expect it.
Well, that was fucking stupid. Anyways, with single track still out of the picture, 989 still had one more chance to redeem themselves, as Sony still wanted another Twisted Metal because despite Twisted Metal 3's negative reception, it still sold pretty well. So, less than 1 year later, we had Twisted Metal 4 come out. Will this game be a redemption, or will this be the final nail in the coffin? Let's go take a look.
This is one of the few Twisted Metals I can barely find any development info on, but from what I can gather, 99 Studios must have been displeased with how Twisted Metal 3 turned out. As a result, the team decided to do their best efforts into making this entry an improvement as much as possible, such as making a new physics engine that emphasizes arcade-style action and speed over largely realistic physics, and expanding the level size. Development must have went smoothly as the game was released on October 31st, 1999 for North America only. Unlike Twisted Metal 3, Twisted Metal 4's reviews ended up being mostly mixed, leaning to positive, though the fanbase is mostly polarized to this entry. Sales-wise, it still sold fairly well, selling about 1.08 million copies and getting a greatest hits re-release as well. Now then, the story of this game is unique to this entry, as this game basically throws out most of the established lore of the franchise in favor of depicting a new origin of the Twisted Metal tournament, showing it as a traveling carnival that's implied to have started since the 1920s of all times. Remember, Twisted Metal 1 was set in 2005 and was the 10th annual tournament, which obviously means that the first Twisted Metal happened in 1995. Not only that, we also get to see a young Needles Kane become enamored with the tournament, which implies he's one old son of a bitch. This game also decides to give Calypso a new source of his powers with the magical ring, which increases in power from the souls of those that died in the contest. When Needles becomes an adult, he immediately entered the chance he got. And then he won the tournament, using his wish to become the face of Twisted Metal. I mean, he's already the face of the series, but you do you won the contest. However, as the years go by, Needles has grown discontent with being a mere competitor over the years, and with his insane clown posse, he launches a coup against Calypso, takes the ring, and becomes the new host of Twisted Metal. Yeah, this is the reason why Calypso has a ring in this game instead of just Minion's powers. It's to conveniently justify why Needles Kane is the host this year instead of Calypso. Not a bad perspective flip, I must say, and it definitely makes the game stick out. Other than that, the premise is the usual tournament, several schmucks with cars enter, one last standing gets prize. This game also barely has any returning vehicles outside of bosses, so this is basically like Street Fighter 3, except most of the newcomers are genuinely trash. I'd argue this game has worse characters than 3 by virtue of just being unfunny, but let's look through this list of unfunny characters. Orbital is actually a pretty decent character. He's a secret agent with a sleek sports car that has a fairly reasonable goal to enter the contest. During a fight with his arch nemesis, he ended up getting half of his face melted off and wishes to be normal again. Pizza Boy is a pizza delivery boy that is, well, white. What do I mean by that? Well...
Yo, what up, ST? Check it, drop a player in a bucket, heck, trip down hoop ride, all chromey, homie, with my name on my props. Aw, yeah, it's gonna be quick. So quick I bounce without my shadow and all that.
He wants a fast ride for illegal street racing, and he makes Vanilla Ice look like the hippest G on the streets, yo! Mr. Grimm is no longer the badass Grim Reaper on a super cool bike, but now this lame pirate Captain Grimm with a pirate ship car. So Matador here enters the tournament hoping to take Needles Kane's soul in a sword fight to the death. Calypso is playable for the first time in this game, which is actually pretty neat. Armed with a nuke mobile, he enters obviously to try to take back his tournament. Quattro is another one of the few characters that's actually pretty alright, even if he feels a little unfitting as he's an alien. He's an intergalactic bounty hunter that enters the tournament hoping to collect the bounty on Needles and nothing else. Now we're back to crappy characters with goggle eyes. He enters the tournament hoping to exterminate all the bugs. We have Meter Maid, who I'm sure is violating a dress code somewhere. She enters the tournament with a little surprise for Needles Kane. General Warthog is a fellow from the days of World War I, and it shows with his World War I tank. He enters the tournament hoping to command an old-fashioned army that has no equals, that doesn't rely on modern technology. Yeah, sure, you totally don't use modern tech at all. Microblast is a megalomaniacal leprechaun armed with a deadly toy car. He enters the tournament hoping to be taller so he can take over the world. Why is there a fucking leprechaun here? Here's the Trash Man, and no, I'm not doing that joke. Apocalypse already did the joke, so that would be plagiarism. This fat fuck enters the tournament hoping to turn the world into garbage. This guy needs to take a bath in a lake of sulfur. The Joneses have entered the tournament with their family wagon for a nice family bonding session. They enter to try to get a new RV with a new summer driver. These guys suck. Rob Zombie of all fucking people enters the tournament. Yes, the actual ass Rob Zombie is here. I honestly get the feeling they got lazy here and just threw in a random celebrity in to just try to boost sales. But at least it's Rob Zombie and not Fred Durst. Anyways, Zombie's here to dig through the ditches, burn through the witches, and slam in the back of his Dragula in the tournament. Now, behold, the worst Twisted Metal character and arguably worst video game character of all time. Like, this is worse than Remy, Bao, the Deadly Six, and Black Doom combined. I must preface this by saying this game came out in 1999 and was a different time socially, so this is an unfunny joke that is also aged extremely poorly. I had to put this disclaimer here as I feel that this character is offensive and I want to warn viewers in case they are offended by this, and that I find this character utterly abhorrent morally in every way possible, and that I condemn this character. I present to you, Drag Queen. Drag Queen feels like an extremely homophobic and transphobic stereotype. Like, just fucking listen to the bio here.
This Twisted Metal thing just ain't for me, girlfriend! But
like, I'm genuinely sickened by this. Like, this feels offensive. His goal is simple. Yes, I said he identifies as male according to the manual. He wants to be famous. I really apologize for this character, but I have to acknowledge this absolutely horrendous character, as otherwise this retrospective would feel inauthentic. Whoever came up with this character or finds them funny should be ashamed of themselves. If you find this character funny,
You have a problem.
I don't know. Drag Queen seemed pretty funny to me.
Case in point. Now get the fuck out of my house.
Up yours, asshole. Now, what's your Hulu password? I want to watch some Family Guy.
If you're gonna stay here, get a job at least.
Screw you.
He's gonna be the death of me, I swear.
if none of these characters tickle your fancy, you can also enter in a Create-A-Car, which is a novel feature, but it's extremely limited and very primitive for the time. But it's still a fun concept. Look, I made Crimson Fury, which is pretty cool. Basically, you give it a body, 1 of 4 specials, and a one-liner to go with it. We also have playable bosses: Crusher, Moonbuggy, Super Thumper, RC Car, Super Axle, Super Auger, Super Slam, Minion, and Sweet Tooth. But they have no bios, and they share the same generic ending of the Create-A-Car, which is kinda lame. But yeah, almost all these characters have one thing in common: they suck! Like, wow, they feel like unfunny Saturday morning cartoon cliches than people that compete in the blood sport that is Twisted Metal. Like, seriously, you have a garbage man with poor hygiene. Why the fuck would he care to compete in Twisted Metal? These characters are so lame they make Sue Howe look badass, and I sincerely mean that. Suck it, Ed Boon, Sue Howe is based. Anyways, unlike the previous games, a lot of the areas seem more generic. You first fight at a construction yard, then you go to the futuristic Neon City, then you fight at a highway called Road Rage, then you go to what's implied to be Sweet Tooth's bedroom, then you fight at a new version of Amazonia, only with ice instead of lava, then it's at an abandoned oil rig, then you fight at Minion's Maze, then you go through Sweet Tooth's Carnival. After you defeat Sweet Tooth, you are granted an audience with Needles Kane, where you claim your prize. This time, the endings feel a little more worth it. They're still nowhere as good as Twisted Metal 2's endings, but not only is the CGI a little better this time, but the endings have a lot more effort put into them. A few of them even gave me a chuckle here and there, such as Meter Maid's ending here.
Metal contest! What is it you desire?
I just came here to give you this, sweetie.
This fine is in the millions! This can't...
There is another option, Shortcakes. Mr. Tooth can choose to do community service and wipe his record clean. This service will only take, about a couple of minutes of his precious time.
We are sorry to inform you that we here at the Twisted Metal Tournament do not accept, condone, or tolerate any... Couple of minutes of community service is indeed fair conduct, and that option will be exercised thoroughly. Someone will see you out. Bye!
Hiya, kids. I'm here taking some time off from chasing bad guys to tell you about some safety tips you can use around your house and the streets to help you stay healthy and smiling. Let's start with your house.
Yeah, it's kind of an obvious aversion, but it's still fairly amusing. Not to also mention that Quattro has a pretty slick ending, where he gets one over Needles and successfully apprehends him.
Quattro, what earthly wish could you possibly desire? A bounty hunter? Tacky, Quattro. Really tacky. Not this time, Quattro! But thanks for playing!
What's on your weapon? What's on your weapon?
Also, when Needle screws over the winner, some of them actually are clever, as seen with Orbital here.
I just want to be normal again. I don't want to be the only one on the planet with only half a face.
Some people are just normally sad, it seems.
Now that's kinda clever. All in all, the endings here show much better effort than the ones in 3 and are fairly competent. That shows them signs of improvement. Now, onto the presentation. Graphically, this game is fairly standard for the late 1990s, not too different from the last game, but the CGI for one has been massively improved. I've seen a lot of people shit on the CGI in this game, and while it's definitely not the best, I wouldn't say it's as bad as 3's. Hell, the CG honestly feels fairly passable at worst, honestly. There's a sort of plastic quality to it, but considering that this is on the original PS1, there's really only so much that can be done. And the cartoony art style does help take the Uncanny Valley off heavily. Though Calypso's model looks really off in his ending, but it's very obvious that they just reused his 3 model, which didn't have the best models as I mentioned earlier. The sound design is also just as good, and we got a wide variety of licensed music this game, which honestly isn't too bad, but some of them clearly date the game to when the game came out, but hey, what are you gonna do? My only real complaint is that the music is tied to a level, so if you want Dragula, you're gonna have to go to the construction yard, which is a good level, more on that in a bit. But considering that this game came out around the same time as the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, it would have been cool to have these songs play in a playlist so the songs don't wear out their welcome. Also, God help you if your disc has a slight scuff, as the song may only play for 10 seconds, then constantly skip. If that occurs, bust out your Spotify playlist and get yourself some Rise Against, and you're good. Or hell, just load up whatever the hell you want. I sometimes play this in the Transformers the movie soundtrack. The sound design itself is also much better in this game, and it doesn't sound like farts either, which is neat. It does get kinda stocky at times, but each weapon contains a unique sound, so you still got some good audio cues to go with. Now on to the most important part, the gameplay. While the physics in this game are definitely a little jank at times, since you may drive on the walls on the occasion, I will definitely say that they are indeed miles better than Twisted Metal 3's, where there's an actual sense of speed and an arcade feel to it. It's still not as good as 2's controls or physics, but it works. The level design has also seen a massive improvement, where the levels are far bigger and have more stuff to do than the entirety of 3's levels. Highlights for me would be Sweet Tooth's bedroom, Neon City, and the oil rig. Those levels are really good. This game also thankfully does away with the regeneration, mostly. Essentially, the map tells you how many opponents you need to destroy, but the rest only come out when the enemies die. I presume this is done to prevent overwhelming the player with enemies, but at least this game is honest with how many people you actually have to fight, and the AI also goes down much faster thanks to them not targeting as much health pickups, and the weapons aren't as badly nerfed this time. The new weapons we also get to play with also aren't too shabby. The freeze motes are good traps to freeze multiple opponents at once. The proximity mines are great motion sensing mines that can be used as an excellent trap. The rain missiles rework feel off, but they're somewhat useful, and the Rain 2 is a great area weapon. The Auto Lob deals massive damage as a mortar on steroids, and the Merv is a good long-range drone. The energy meter and fighting game inputs are back, but thankfully, they brought the shield back as well to help with pot shots. But we also got new ability suits such as the Hyperspace Teleport, which can help you out in a jam. The difficulty also feels massively reduced, though that's also where this game's ranking system comes in. Essentially, your game's rank indicates the difficulty, and the further you progress, the AI gets harder. You can beat the game multiple times and gain a harder difficulty. I personally haven't done that, but it's a concept that I think sounds neat but executed very poorly. I think it would have just been better to have standard difficulty settings personally, but the challenge for the main run seems mostly fair, even when you take into account that each level this time also includes a boss. Except for Sweet Tooth! Sweet Tooth is the final boss in this game, and holy shit, I think this is without a doubt the cheapest Twisted Metal boss in the entire series, all because of one little thing, his special weapon. His special is called the Henchman, and it's basically Moonbuggy's special weapon on steroids. The second you hear the clown laughter, run! If you're unlucky to get caught by it, well, you're practically fucked. If you got energy, you can input the hyperspace to teleport away from it, but that may only help temporarily at best. Hell, his special can immediately tear through good armor as well. I had 5-star armor there, fuckhead! The best way to survive this is to get a shit ton of proximity mines and just keep your distance from Sweet Tooth. If you have to get close to him, freeze his ass and pelt him with the power missile, then run. When you beat the tournament mode, not only do you get your character's ending, but you unlock all the bosses for regular play, and you also get to unlock some Deathmatch exclusive arenas. These areas aren't that good, really, but it's a nice sentiment. If you're wondering, Sweet Tooth is not balanced remotely for regular play, and is just as broken as he is as a boss. Once again, when single player gives you your fill, hop on some Deathmatch. It's still as fun as ever, but 4-player runs like absolute shit. I think it even runs worse than Twisted Metal 3 even. Also, I might point this out, Minion's Maze is a complex level, but it's fine in the tournament mode, but this level sucks in multiplayer. Thankfully, the 2-player itself runs fine and genuinely kicks ass. While this game isn't as good as Twisted Metal 2, I definitely think that this game shows that 99 definitely can make a car combat game that is pretty fun. They genuinely listened to critics and fans on what went wrong with 3, and clearly made a decent effort to make up for it, and I think for the most part, they succeeded. Yeah, I'm serious. I like this game a lot, honestly. Again, it's not as good as 1 and 2, but I don't think this game is bad. It's a decent car combat game in its own right. And honestly, it has some pretty cool levels I wouldn't mind seeing in future Twisted Metals, if they ever happen. Twisted Metal 4 earns a 6 out of 10.
Despite the mixed to positive reception and still decent sales of Twisted Metal 4, this would prove to be 99's last outing with the Twisted Metal franchise. As in 1999, David Jaffe and the other Twisted Metal team went and formed Incognito Entertainment to get to work on the brand new installment of Twisted Metal for the PS2, to give the series a big redemption that it needed, because a lot of people still didn't like Twisted Metal 4 as much as 1 and 2. To see what we found out with that, join us next time as we take a look at Twisted Metal Black for the PS2.
I am Calypso, And I thank you for playing Twisted Metal.